The next speaker is our own State Senator Jim Oberweiss. And I do apologize, Senator. I am responsible for having the wrong district in the brochure, even though I looked over it probably 100 times. He is a senator from the 25th District. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you very much. First of all, let me say from the bottom of my heart, thank you to all of you for what you do for our community and your communities. Some of you may not be aware, most of you may not be aware, I have a red-headed nurse practitioner daughter, Janie Roberts, who works occasionally at Delnor in the emergency room, has worked at Mercy, and also sometimes worked in Sterling, Illinois, in their emergency room. So this is an issue that is certainly near and dear to my heart. But I have to admit, and I think Margo made a good point, most of us in the legislature aren't seriously aware of the problem. Even though I have a daughter working there, and even though I was aware of the serious situation at Delnor that occurred. I talked to Jenny this morning. She made me aware of something else that she never told me about that happened, again, I think fairly recently. And I believe it was at Delnor, and she mentioned there was a guy who called and said something to the effect of, "I'm coming. You better have plenty of body bags ready because I'm taking many of you with me." Unfortunately, while the police found out who this was, they did nothing about it. To me, that's something that should have been taken very seriously and pursued aggressively. And I'm at a loss to understand why it wasn't taken more seriously. Fortunately, nothing happened as a result of it. The guy is apparently a little bit crazy, but to hear about that after the fact is pretty scary. I won't pretend to tell you that I understand the solution to this problem. I think making the problem better known and better understood, not only by the legislature, but perhaps more importantly by police forces throughout the area, is perhaps the most important thing. Looking at best practices in other areas in other states certainly is something that we should all undertake and pay attention to. I don't believe that I have a lot of great ideas. I'm here to learn as much as anything. If I could take just a couple of minutes, if anybody has any questions that they'd like to ask, I'd be more than happy to answer if I can. Other than that, I'll try to pay more attention and learn more about it and see what we can do to help in Springfield. And this certainly shouldn't be a Republican issue. It shouldn't be a Democrat issue. It's clearly a bipartisan issue that we're all concerned and interested in. Are there any questions that I can answer?
Go ahead, Janie.
Do you believe that mandatory prosecution is the answer for violence? Do you think that could be one of the answers? In my state, I don't think we are required in domestic violence cases state action pressure charges. Do you think that might be an answer because so many hospitals actually threaten nurses with firing when they're assaulted when it comes to charges?
The question, for those of you who couldn't hear it, make sure I get it right, is should mandatory prosecution be required in cases of attempted violence? Is that
Healthcare violence.
in healthcare violence? That certainly sounds very logical and reasonable to me. To be honest, I'm shocked to learn that they aren't. This is news to me, and I'm fairly involved in this with my daughter serving. So. I appreciate that, but that seems to be fairly obvious. And you're asking about mandatory prosecution, not necessarily mandatory sentencing?
No, just mandatory prosecution. Where I come from, for example, like I said, the police officers decided that they weren't going to arrest them.
I don't understand why they wouldn't do that. That makes no sense. And yes, then that's certainly an issue that we need to pay attention to and make more known. And that's, I guess, what this is all about today. Any other questions? Yes.
What would it take for a third-degree felony assault to not be allowed to get pled down to misdemeanor?
The question again, if I understood, is what would it take to prevent a third degree felony assault from being pled down to a misdemeanor. I don't know the answer to that. My belief, or my guess, I put it that way, is that when they do that, they may do that in a situation where they may be concerned that they don't have enough evidence to get a conviction, and getting something on the record is better than nothing on the record. So I don't know the answer to that. I don't know. I'd hate to take that flexibility away from them. However, if it's being abused and constantly being pled down and people are not going to jail for some of this stuff that they should be, then we have a serious problem there.
Do you think that you might be willing to maybe have different areas of this problem come together with you to maybe work on getting legislation together, like law enforcement, healthcare, anybody, not just police, but also corrections, and maybe find a solution to make sure that...
The question, I think, is, am I willing to sit down with all different parties who might have some interest and be involved in this to work on possible legislation? Absolutely, yes. No question about it.
Thank you.
And I like to get my dog involved in it, too, because she's pretty, when she gets going on something, it's pretty, she's a strong redhead.
So, Senator Oberweiss, you'd be willing to sponsor or co-sponsor new legislation protecting healthcare workers in our state?
Yes.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Again, from the bottom of my heart, let me truly say thank you for what you do for our community. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to be involved. I think Jenny would be here, except she's working, which I'm sure a lot of other people who would like to be here are as well. So thanks again for your help, your support of the community, and taking care of people.